I'm the Managing Director for Asia for Envestnet Yodlee. It's a real privilege to be here today for our closing fireside chat of the evening. And I'm absolutely delighted that we will have with us shortly Varun Berry, the Managing Director of Britannia. Varun has been with Britannia since early 2014 and has been widely recognized for transforming the company from a well-known biscuit company to a global total foods company in over 60 countries now. He has transformed the company in many different ways, which we will ask him to talk about shortly. He has received many accolades through these years, especially from Forbes as the best private sector CEO, from Business World as the most valuable CEO in 2017, and many, many others. But perhaps even more importantly, with his very sharp focus on rewarding shareholders, the stock price, which was around 250 when Varun took over six and a half years ago, is now 3,500 today. An incredible performance. And Varun is the darling of the bosses for his really brilliant leadership at Britannia over these last 6-7 years. With that, it is my pleasure to invite Varun to join me on stage. Mr. Berry.
Hey, Arjun, how are you? Yeah, good to see you.
So Varun, the NASSCOM folks asked me to get hold of a smart, good-looking, charismatic CEO, but I couldn't find anybody, so I thought I'll invite you.
That sounds like the definition for AD Singh, your twin.
So I must say, although people might be surprised to think that Varun is as young as I am, we did start our careers together at Brook Bond. Varun was in sales and marketing. I was with tech, where all the real work happens, as everyone on this call knows. And at that time, Brook Bond was which later became part of the Unilever fold, had an incredible program. It said that we get management trainees who we hope will one day be chairman or CEO. And Gopal Vittal, Varun and I started together along with many other Bangalore luminaries like Vivek Shanbhag, Harish Bajur, many others. And Gopal went on to become the head of Airtel. We had the pleasure of having him run an electrifying session at our conference last year. And this year it's an absolute pleasure that we've got Varun to share his thoughts as a really successful CEO around areas that I know are very unusual for our group of people in GCCs to normally face. Strategy, go-to-market, running a P&L, facing the heat of the competition, dealing with the issues with bad decisions, managing quarter-to-quarter results. So NASSCOM and I felt that we would like our flagship session this year to be with Varun. Varun, in memory of those moments of having both Gopal and you give us the privilege of listening to you and learning from you, I got my red label out. It's a sentimental day, frankly, to have you here. Varun is a passionate golfer. With his height, he hits the ball a very long way, and occasionally it's also straight. Otherwise, the ponds at KG are overflowing with mishit golf balls from Varun's direction. Varun, so let me ask you your takeaway from the recently concluded or almost concluded American election.
So have they concluded it finally? I've lost track of that, Arjun. But yeah, no, it's delightful to see what's happened in a way, because I think true leadership is inclusive and not divisive. And leaders have to carry people along, and they have to play to win. and they have to have every constituent's interest in mind. Trump just didn't have anything of any of those with him, and especially character, I think. But the surprising part is, despite all that, he's got over 70 million votes. So the doubt that I have in my mind is that is the human race becoming too self-centered and too selfish, that we want to vote for a person who we don't like, but because he's going to cut our taxes, maybe we should vote for them, right? So I think we've seen 4 years of turmoil, misinformation, manipulation, division, and all that you can think of. And now we can see a fresh promise of democracy. So I think I don't think the US could have taken another 4 years of Trump. So I'm delighted with what's happened, and it's delightful to see that it's a new era which is coming to be.
That's very powerful, Varun. I do recall seeing a gentleman of color, I think, on the CNN, on the CNN reporting channel, breaking down, just saying what you said, which is, we can believe that character matters again.
Right.
I think the world needs America to be again a place which we can all look up to and be the greatest country in the world again. Okay, Varun, so closer to home, we are competing with the final of the IPL. I know you and I are on opposing sides, but do you have a preferred team and a preferred player, and who do you watch?
Who do I watch? Well, I watch the IPL. So basically, if you ask me preferred players, there've been some spectacular performances. I think Shreyas Iyer has done a fantastic job of taking Delhi to the first finals. So he's been a great leader. KL Rahul, unfortunately, the team didn't do well, but led from the front all through. But frankly, my favorite has been Warner, who suddenly came out of the blue and won a string of matches, and finally he didn't make it to the finals, but took some very hard decisions and took the team to the semis. So I think he was my favorite captain during this IPL.
Good. I look forward to hearing from you about some of the hard decisions you had to take as CEO as we proceed later in this chat, Varun.
Right.
Okay, so Varun, we have an audience which is largely from the GCC community.
Right.
This year we are privileged that it is a global audience. As such, we rarely get this chance to learn about the challenges that CEOs face in strategically in competing in the market. So I would like to begin by talking about your early journey with stellar companies like Brook Bond and Pepsi. And just maybe how would you describe the journey, and what were your learnings and insights from that period of your life?
Well, if I was to break my career into phases, there would be 3 clear phases. Obviously, there are 3 companies that I've worked for, but very, very different companies. The first company, obviously, was the one that we started together. So Brook Bond, very stable, very solid company. That's where I learned, business. Not just business. I learned the FMCG business. I learned marketing. I learned sales. Very, very solid, very systematic about teaching the new incumbents, as well as the systems in the company also very solid. So all you needed to do was, do the right thing and, keep doing it, execute well, and things were good. There was one guy who I worked with who was, I'm sure you remember, Mickey Pant. Mickey was my boss when I was in marketing. He was a guy who I really admired. I haven't seen a guy with that kind of knowledge, Arjun. You could talk to him about anything and everything. He was wide and deep, right? He understood a lot of things, and he understood them in a lot of detail. and what a sense of humor. So he was the bridge between me and my second phase. So he joined Pepsi, and then he took me to Pepsi with him. So that was the second phase. So if Brook Bond was a fixed deposit, Pepsi was like the wild stock market, right? There were no systems, there were no processes. It was a new company into India. It was all dependent, completely dependent on what people did, and it was great. That company taught me what entrepreneurship is all about. How do you run a business? How do you run it well, without any supervision? Right? There was no supervision at all. A very interesting phase. Pepsi took me. That was my longest stint as well. So started in India, ran various businesses, then went and ran the Vietnam business for PepsiCo. Thereafter moved to the Philippines, ran the Philippines business, and then to the Middle East, and finally came back to India and ran the Pepsi Foods business. So very interesting, business experiences, but more than business experiences, also cultural experiences. So met a lot of different people, understood a lot of different cultures. And frankly, just to give you an example, between Vietnam and Philippines, chalk and cheese, right? Vietnamese have been through such a tough history that they are poker-faced but very hardworking. You can never see, they don't show their feelings at all. While the Filipinos, they wear their heart on their sleeve. They like to sing and dance, and they cry, if there's an issue, and they laugh, and so very, very different cultures. So great experiences. And finally, the third phase of my life was Britannia, which truly has been a remarkable experience. I was a little worried when I came to Britannia because I'd worked with multinationals before this. And this was an Indian company, a majority holding by the Wadia Group. But frankly, it turned out to be a diamond in the rough. It was a great company, at my stage of my life. And, it was just a perfect place for me because it was highly empowered. The job was highly empowered. There was very quick decision making. Contrary to what you think, decision making in these companies, because it depends on a board and a chairman. And if you're able to convince them, it works very, very quickly. While in a PepsiCo, it would take a long time because there were levels and layers. So you would have to go to a region and then to a sector and then to corporate in the US. And it would just take forever to get a $1 million capex cleared. But here, if you've got a business case, it would take 2 days to get a $100 million capex cleared. So from that standpoint, and great people. So I've really enjoyed every aspect of my third phase. So that's how I would look at the three phases of my career. And frankly, each one has been very different, but very, very exciting.
Very interesting, Varun. And as you entered Pepsi, tell me about two leadership skills that you already had that you brought to the table, which enabled you to start quickly and be successful early. And talk to us about one aspect that you were worried about, that you weren't sure that you could be the leader you wanted to be on all fronts. And how did you deal with that? How did you improve? How did you develop?
So is that Pepsi or Britannia?
Britannia.
Yeah. So when I got into Britannia, it was frankly what I saw from the outside was absolutely clear to me. It was truly a diamond which was just waiting for it to be polished. As a management trainee in Brook Bond, when I used to go to the market, I would see Britannia to be the best distributed company, right? Whichever place you would go, you would see Britannia products all over the place. But I had started to see that wane during my time in PepsiCo. So I knew there was something that was there. I could also see a lot more competition. ITC had come in, and they were giving a run for the money to Britannia. Britannia was not able to move fast enough as far as innovation was concerned, etc. So I could see a lot of things which could be done to take this company to its past glory. So with that, when I came in, I frankly, within the first 15 days of my coming into Britannia, I could see very clearly what needed to be done and what were the issues. First and foremost, it was all about people. What had happened was that it had become a little siloized, typically a little bureaucratic. There was the senior management which was sitting on the second floor, and people had to take permission to come in there, and so all of those things had started to happen, which shows that there was a little bit of bureaucracy which was creeping in. While all of the ingredients were there to cook up the best dish possible, but it was just not being mixed the right way. We had it was people, brands, everything was there, but it was just not being done the right way. So the first thing I did was got the right people in the right place, and I was very, very cognizant of one thing, that people were watching me. Right? Everyone was looking at this guy who's come in. He's got Brook Bond, Unilever. He's got Pepsi experience. Obviously, he's got a lot of connections. He's got friends. He's got people that he's worked with, in various companies. So he's going to bring his own people. So that was something that everyone was expecting, but I didn't do that. My challenge was to pick people from within Britannia and make them do bigger jobs. So I went about it in a way where I started to meet people, not just who were 1 or 2 levels below me, but people who were even 3, 4 levels, just to identify who were the leaders of the future. And that truly gave me a look at what this company was capable of doing. People were fantastic, great minds. They didn't have the kind of experience. They were younger. The kind of experience that I had seen with people in PepsiCo or even in Unilever. But these guys were really bright, and they could be polished up. So I started to bring these guys to run, functions which were much larger than what they'd run. So I had at that time 13 direct reports, and 11 out of those were handpicked by me, who were 2 or 3 levels below the job that they were doing, and I put them into that position now. And I did it even if they were 70% ready for the job. The onus of developing them was on me. There was a little bit of a burden to make sure that they, become right for that job. But I said that's well worth it, because it's going to create a wave within the company, which is going to be that if you're good, you'll get rewarded, you'll get a bigger job. We coined this term called Britannia for Britannians. And we got these guys to do much bigger jobs, and just turned out to be that they did a fantastic job because they were so delighted with what was happening to them. So that was the first thing. The second big gap was distribution. As I told you, I'd observed it, and as I came into the organization, I noticed that we'd become, very primary distribution led. So we were only worried about what we sold to the distributor, and what happens from the distributor to the retailer was not so important to most of the people in the sales department. And we would give discounts and hope that the product will travel to the retail outlets. So that had to be changed. That was a double whammy, because one, it was about reducing the discounts, and second, about getting retail distribution to the smallest of outlets. So that was the second. Third was about brands. I think we were advertising too many brands. We created these 6 mega brands, and we said that we've got to put money behind these 6 mega brands rather than advertising 14 brands, so that each brand got a substantial amount of support. And I think those were the things. And then finally, once all this was sorted out, we started to do innovation. We set up a fantastic R&D center in Bangalore, and we started to innovate and bring out products which were first to the market, etc. And that really made a big difference. People got charged up. There was a lot of excitement in the ranks. There was a lot of excitement in the company that the company's taken a turn for the right direction, etc. And that created, and it's like a snowball which starts to roll, and then it just keeps gathering till it becomes huge, and that's what happened. So that's in a short the story of what we did at Britannia.
That's a wonderful summary, Varun. And I'm just thinking of all the people on this call and people who join our workplace. And our dream is we are ready to give you our best. Just take a chance on us. Give us bigger jobs, stretch us, challenge us. We can do anything, but believe in us. And so I think that I certainly would apply for a job with you, Varun, hearing about how you are empowering people, taking a chance, stretching people. And they won't always fail, but you're keeping an eye to help them succeed. It's the best thing we can ever do for the people on our teams. That's wonderful to hear, Varun.
Right.
Okay, let me just talk about our main topic of today, which is speed and agility. And in all companies, global companies, you look to be, entropy is increasing. The challenges from the marketplace are increasing at a faster pace. And as leaders, we need to be able to be nimble.
Right.
And Britannia had a remarkable quarter where many companies in many industries were shutting down, struggling. The June quarter for you had a 21% plus volume growth. That's a sensational story. It speaks of A, the foundation you had built earlier, but B, really remarkable leadership to at speed do what needed to be done to, in fact, outperform the market. So could you talk to us about, as a leader, how you faced into this tremendous external challenge, the like of which the world has rarely seen, and then deliver these incredible results over the June quarter and beyond?
Well, these were incredibly difficult times. And the first thing that we did as a team is that we decided that we should have no hindsight bias. It's a completely different environment to what we witnessed ever in our lives. And hence, we should not look back and say, hey, listen, this is what we used to do, etc., etc. So we just removed the hindsight bias from all actions that we took. Second, it was uncertain to an extent that we didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, right? Because nobody knew when this virus is going to go away, etc. So we would discuss, and we took another decision, which was that uncertainty is there for a long time. So let's take it seriously, and let's be absolutely nimble with what we do. Third was it were incredibly difficult times for a lot of people who were out of their homes, who were working in some different part of the country, and their families were in different parts of the country. So I think passion and compassion was very, very important. And reaching out to these guys, and everyone was not together like we used to be. So it was very important for all of us to be together on some platform and talk about where we are at, what's harming us, what are we worried about, how can we help each other. So that passion and compassion was very, very important, and touch points were very important. And we would meet every day in the morning, and we would discuss every day about how we're going to take this forward. And like that, I think what we were able to do was we were able to create an opportunity out of the challenge. We connected seamlessly with the team. All these technology platforms that we are on today, they helped us incredibly. we would connect every day. We would prioritize. It was manufacturing centers were closed. So slowly, steadily, as they were opening, it was very important for us to prioritize and say, what are we going to produce and what are we going to sell? So we went by the 80-20 rule, which was we chose the 20% of our SKUs, which gave us 80% of our revenues, and we just didn't think about the other 80% of the SKUs, which were only providing 20% of our revenues. So that SKU rationalization helped us a lot. Yes, it does harm us in the long term because those SKUs were out of the market for a long period of time. But during that time, that was absolutely the right thing to do. We sided with efficiency over variety, right? So while variety is important, but it was a time where people were buying whatever was available to them in the shop next to their place, right? And we were extremely adaptive. We make sure that we every day, if need be, we would change our strategy, and we would connect amongst ourselves and decide what the next step for us would be. And finally, the winds and the waves, help the ablest navigators. So that's what happened. We benefited from that, and I think as a team we came together really well, and it just helped us also understand what were the trends that were happening in the market. So, whenever there is widespread disruption, there will be trends which will change. So, home consumption was obviously happening, and there was no on the go consumption happening. So, we had to adapt to that. Trusted brands, we had the most trusted brands, and people were leaning on trusted brands during that time. So, it was very important that we got our brands into as many stores as possible, so that we could get the benefit of that. It was very important to shorten our supply chains because it was very difficult to produce, second, take our products to different parts of the country, etc. So we tried to make sure that our product doesn't travel too far from our factory. That helped us a lot, and it was a time when the neighborhood store became very, very important because people didn't want to travel to a modern trade store which was 5 kilometers away. It was the neighborhood store who was reigning supreme. So making sure that we supported the traditional trade store and we got our products into that traditional trade store somehow. And the last but not least was that rural was not as badly affected as urban. So we started to make inroads into rural, and that's how we were able to make good during these 6 months, and we gained a lot of share during this time. And we also have realized that there are three things which are going to continue for a long time because the economic downturn is going to come to roost at some stage, right? Right now we are doing really well. So affordability has become a reality. And hence, it's very important to have products and packages at affordable price. Second, health and immunity has become extremely important for consumers, and hence, it's important that we focus on that and get products that consumers want. And finally, people are worried because this was a fight with Mother Nature, and hence people are worried about how this is going to go forward. So sustainability for organization is very important. So we have to take onus of what we can do for our environment and make sure that we don't do anything which harms the environment that we live in, because nobody can win against Mother Nature. When it comes to a fight between us and Mother Nature, it's going to be, obviously a one-sided fight. We have to just adapt to it. And that's exactly what we are going to do as we move forward.
And perhaps no one should win against Mother Nature. I think
Absolutely.
That's the other opportunity to think as COVID came.
Yeah.
That's an incredible case study, Varun. The results are clear for everyone to see. Look, we have just a few minutes left, so I will take some questions. And the first question is, What is your definition of being successful? Today's workforce wants instant gratification. What is your advice to the young leaders on where to focus in their roles?
So I think success for me is being happy in what you do. It's not about what you earn. It's not about a large company that you work for. I think it's about happiness, and no one else but this audience, this young audience on your platform will understand this better than me, because I observe my children, and they will not do anything which they don't enjoy. They will not last in a job which they're not enjoying. They would move away and do something that interests them. So I think that's very, very important in life. What was the second part of the question, Arjun?
What is your definition of being successful? And you said, I think we can combine that, which is to be happy. It's not about money or other trappings. If you can find a way to be happy in your work.
Yeah.
And in today's generation, there are more opportunities and people are having the courage to pursue that, but it's not easy. That's very good, Varun. Maybe the last question for today is, so what are the new leadership traits and how do you percolate them through the organization?
What are the new leadership traits? Yeah. So I would say the most important thing in leadership is inclusive. Be inclusive. Make sure that everyone is involved, everyone who matters is involved in your decision, but don't move away from the table without closing that decision. If there's a difference in the ranks, then you, as the leader of the team, have to take a decision before you move away. If you leave that, it hangs. So inclusive but decisive leadership is the most important thing from my standpoint.
Thank you, Varun. We finished where we started with your values coming through about inclusiveness and character, and your leadership success traits of focus, decision-making, clarity. It's been a very sharp session, Varun, and we can see why you've been so successful. And I would say many of us would love to work for you, listening to what we heard today with your focus on people and developing leaders. Thank you very much, Varun. A real pleasure to have you join us on this conference. We've been trying for years, and now you've done so.
Thanks, Arjun. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.